Welcome back to Voices of Influence, the podcast with Chris Madrigal. Today, I'm dropping chapter 2 of the Mini Audiobook Series. And this one is actually a collaboration book I put together for Latinas after I published my first book. I wanted Latinas to also experience the ease of sharing their stories and leaving a legacy behind. So this particular book holds extra passion because I personally got to know each author a little more through their journey of sharing their story. This book was published in October of 2024 during Hispanic Heritage Month. So here's my chapter in Latinas Rising, Breaking Generational Chains and Becoming Changemakers. Enjoy! Live your dream. You don't have to do it alone. You never did. You might have believed that, but remember, not every thought deserves your attention. Life is not meant to do alone. We are designed to have a tribe, a group, que en las buenas, en las malas, te levante. A community of like-minded people who support you in an instant because they are walking the same path beside you. I craved connection with people who not only saw me, but also understood me on a cultural level. People who were defying cultural norms, ready to rise and shatter generational chains. People willing to put themselves first and chase their dreams, terrified but hopeful. I yearned for a space where we could grow together as we journey through life. A place to rise, feel supported, connect, collaborate, and elevate. And so I knew I had to emerge from the cave. The journey. Reflecting on my childhood, I cherish the incredible moments spent living in Mexico. My parents provided my siblings and me with the most beautiful cultural experiences imaginable. It was their dream to one day return and live in Mexico, so they raised us by immersing us in the culture, spending 6 months in the US and 6 months in Mexico. I vividly remember the joy and excitement as December approached, signaling it was time to pack up and head to a place I loved dearly. My mom would pack the suitcases, rolling our clothes tightly like burritos to make it all fit. She filled the ice chest with drinks, food, and snacks, while my dad prepared the camper on the pickup truck, creating a cozy space for us. That setup became our home for the next 2.5 days. In retrospect, when we talk about our trips, we recognize just how unsafe they were. Our journey took us from Northern California into Arizona, where we would stop to sleep, only to wake up at the crack of dawn and continue into Mexico, traveling through Chihuahua, Zacatecas, Aguascalientes, and finally to our main destination, Yahualica, Jalisco. I remember those days on the road. My sister loved to play Name That Tune, and we would hum songs for hours, trying to guess each one. We all wanted a chance to ride shotgun with our parents and listen to their stories as we drove. So if we were lucky enough, we made sure to turn around and smile at the other two in the back, only to discover the back was a bit more exciting than the front row. I could immediately sense my parents' anxiety rising the moment we crossed into Mexico. I vividly remember the time we were randomly stopped by strangers who circled our truck, flashing their lights inside. I could hear my mother's prayer and the fear in her voice. Yet, despite these moments, we returned year after year, determined to give us an incredible childhood. When we finally arrived in Mexico, in Yahualica, I was filled with joy and excitement to see the family and friends who awaited us year after year. We had kept in touch through letters, and everyone eagerly anticipated our arrival. The months and years spent in Mexico were without a doubt the best of my childhood memories. It felt as though our parents felt safe enough to let us roam freely with our friends. Our elementary school was just half a block from home, and middle school was my first experience in a private Catholic school where classes ran from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., as I recall. Our mornings were filled with chores, from sweeping the cobblestone streets to washing clothes by hand and mopping daily. These weren't the fondest memories, but they taught me to appreciate the amenities I had in the U.S. As I grew older, I began to recognize certain aspects of our culture I didn't agree with, particularly when it came to the education system. I had a strong desire to go to college, but I couldn't see the possibility in Mexico. We weren't a family of status, nor did we have connections within the system. Back then, it wasn't about our grades or exam scores, it was about who you knew. At that point, I decided to stay in the U.S. to pursue a higher education. Life as I knew it came to an end, and I chose to remain in the U.S. to chase the American dream. The American dream. One day, I woke up and realized I wanted a different life than the one I saw around me. I remembered the freedom I felt in Mexico, the genuine connections, and the different lifestyle. I loved it and longed to have it back, but I couldn't see a way to recapture that feeling. In the US, I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel seen or heard, and even though it was my birthplace, I didn't fit in. To break the cycle, I knew I had to leave the small town of 1,800 people we lived in to go to college. As a first-generation college student, I had to figure everything out on my own. And so I did, and I left for college. I remember the night before my parents drove me to the dorms at San Jose State University. I was filled with anxiety and suddenly didn't want to move. Although I was the youngest of three, I was the first to move away for college. My family helped move me into the dorms, and as they walked away, I felt scared. I could see the fear in my parents' faces and the tears in my mother's eyes. We were all trying to be brave, but now I was on my own, in a big city, navigating life as a young adult. My mother's greatest dream was to get an education, but she had to drop out of school in the 6th grade to work and help provide for the household. She was determined to ensure her children would obtain the education she was denied. Was I living out her dream instead of my own? I followed the traditional path. I went to college, earned 3 degrees, bought a house, got married, started a family, landed a corporate job, stayed in it for 19 years, earned 6 figures, but I wasn't fulfilled. How did I end up here? What happened? Why didn't I recognize myself? The signs were all there. I just chose to ignore them. I chose the traditional path, the American dream, but that dream had turned into a living nightmare. My parents sacrificed so much to give us the opportunities they never had, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Yet, somehow, I realized I was reliving their story just with financial and educational upgrades. I carried the same fears, adopted the same scarcity mindset, and allowed my employer to control a large part of my life. If breaking the cycle was all I ever wanted, how did I end up feeling so trapped? I was reliving the very path I didn't want, the path I tried to break away from. I had the education and compensation my parents only dreamed of, yet I wasn't happy. I hadn't broken the cycle of freedom. Someone else owned my time, and in the process, I had given away a part of my joy. A corporation controlled my freedom. A corporation dictated how many days off I could spend with my family. A corporation determined my worth through an annual review, if I even received one. The worst part was I had allowed it to happen. I had spent my entire adult life working tirelessly to make someone else's dream come true. But what about mine? Where had my dreams gone? At what point did I silence my inner voice and decide it was no longer important? I looked around and no longer recognized myself. I was simply existing, not truly living or loving life. Somewhere along the way, I stopped believing in myself. The child who once had a big dream no longer existed. Those dreams had become a distant vision. And if I was going to break the cycle, I had to start believing in myself again. The awakening. It was time to live life differently. The familiar path had left me feeling drained, and I was officially done with it. I began to make courageous moves. I began to invest in myself. I began to rediscover who I was before life told me otherwise. I began to change my programming. I began to connect with my higher self and spiritual guides. And I began to see clearly again. The path I once believed was right had led me to shackles. So I quietly began the inner work. I had to find my tribe, the coaches, mentors, and communities that would uplift me during my awakening process. Not everyone was on my side, and not just anyone was allowed on my team. I had to find my people. Let me tell you, it's a lonely journey when you're just starting out, but I pushed through. There were moments when I felt like I was living a double life. I had to hide my journey from my employer after being told I was spending too much time on personal development, which they claimed would take away time and energy from my work. That was yet another confirmation that they didn't care about my best interest or growth, only the company's. I decided to be brave and asked for time off to obtain my coaching certification at the University of California, Davis. When it was approved, I felt hopeful that the organization might finally see my vision. With 17 years at that time in human resources under my belt, I thought just for a moment that they recognized my value and believed in my vision. But I was wrong. When I shared my vision, one executive told me, "You think too big. You need to think smaller." Another said, "You will never be able to do that in this department." That was a moment I said, "Enough, Chris. Stop letting others shatter your vision. You are meant for more." So on March 29th, 2024, after 19 years in the same organization, I closed the chapter on my corporate life. I became a full-time entrepreneur, ready to conquer my wildest dreams and elevate those who chose to rise with me. The unlearning. I never imagined how much I had to unlearn from my years in corporate. I spent the first few months shedding beliefs that no longer served me. I had always been a high performer, consistently accomplishing more in the same amount of time as others. I frequently joined teams to improve processes and increase productivity, but in the end, it all felt like meaningless work. It was just busy work that never led to lasting change. What I did adopt was the hustle and grind mentality. I believed I had to work exceptionally hard for endless hours to create the life I desired. But boy, was I wrong. After leaving corporate, I had to force myself to let go of this belief. I began to work smarter, not harder. I challenged myself to work fewer hours and enjoy life more. Let me tell you, this doesn't happen overnight. I still found myself believing I hadn't done enough. That was until my mentor brought me to a screeching halt. She said to me, "Chris, you place conditions on your happiness. the comment hit me, and it hit me hard. Was I unconsciously preventing myself from experiencing joy until certain tasks were completed each day? Was part of my self-worth tied to how long I worked? It hit me again. I was still unlearning the lessons the corporate world had ingrained in me. It taught me that no matter how efficient I was, I still had to be present in the office. I had been an unconscious competent my entire life, conditioned to create work just to fill my day in the corporate world. Over 19 years, this added up to a significant amount of time. Efficiency was never rewarded. How dare anyone be so efficient and leave the office before others? Who do you think you are? It took 19 years to condition myself to a belief that left me depleted at the end of each day, and I no longer wanted that feeling. That programming began creeping in again as an entrepreneur, only this time I was in front of a computer at home, and some days I felt my energy bank low by the end of the day. That was until I realized that part of my purpose on this earth is to show others a new way, a way that allows you to enjoy the beauty of this life, a way that frees you from being enslaved to old beliefs, allowing you to adopt a new way of being, a way that makes life and work feel effortless and joyful, a way where happiness is unconditional, fully experienced with every fiber of your being. That's what I'm here to do, to show you a new way of life. The elevation. Elevation comes with awakening your consciousness. It stems from believing in your capacity to receive messages from God, Source, the universe, guides, or whoever you connect with. They're always speaking to you. The real question is, do you get quiet enough to hear them? I began to close my eyes and truly feel God's presence with me. He had always been there, but my mind was so cluttered to hear His voice as clearly as I do now. Now, His words flow through me, and His messages are so profound that I capture them in a notebook to remember them. I vividly recall the first time I heard His voice loud and clear. I closed my eyes, and His message flowed through me. With tears streaming down my face, I feverishly wrote down every single word that came through. I had never felt God so close. I had always prayed and believed deeply, but this time, it was different. His message was so profound that it left me speechless. After breakfast, I sat at the kitchen table and told my husband about my experience. I couldn't find the words to describe it, so I grabbed my notebook and read the message aloud. It brought him to tears, and all he said was to obey. These messages now wake me up in the middle of the night. They are so beautiful that I began capturing them on my phone to remember in the morning. One night, I woke up to the words, "Life is to learn and grow." I tuned in, then I heard, "Life is to learn and grow. Learn to live life from within, for it all starts in your heart. Learn to embrace every moment with a smile, even when it hurts inside, for a smile signals a feeling of love. Learn that life is what you make of it, not what you think it should be. Learn to smile while exhausted. Let it propel you in the right direction and not drown you. Learning is part of your journey on earth. To grow in faith as you mourn, grow in love as you drown, grow in joy as you embrace life. Most of all, grow within and expand your capacity to receive all that is already yours. You are one with God. You are one with the universe. You are the one in control of your mind. Decide how you want to experience life today. Imprint that in your heart and allow that to be your truth. My elevation has brought me new levels of faith, greater levels of trust, and profound levels of love. I have attracted people into my life who have led me to experience life in ways I never imagined possible. At the start of this chapter, I mentioned my desire for connection with people who not only saw me, but understood me. People who were defying cultural norms, ready to rise and break generational chains. People who were prepared to put themselves first and pursue their dreams. That is what the elevation brought me, my people. The best part is that this journey has not only elevated me, but also my marriage, and in turn, my family. I also wanted a place to grow together as we journey through life, a place to rise and feel supported, a place to connect, collaborate, and elevate, and I have found that in my own home. All I needed was to come out of the cave, see the light, and experience life differently. I believe every moment in life is here to teach me something, and it's up to me to decide what to do with each lesson. I was told that this book, Latinas Rising, was here to teach me something, but it was up to me to discover what that was. So I got quiet. I asked God faithfully, and his answer flowed right through. It is here to teach you to be fearless. It brought you a safety net to allow you to step away from corporate. You wouldn't have done it otherwise. It's teaching you to have faith in the unknown, to believe in the unseen. As you meditate on this book and the unknown, it's elevating your consciousness. It's teaching you courage. Being fearless is also courageous. This book came to free you from corporate, for you to share your experience in it, to launch a new company and see all the beautiful pieces come together. It brought a mentor into your life to wake you up and show you how to do things easily. You've worked so hard up to this point. Allow it to be easy. I'm taking care of you. I'm taking care of your family. It immediately became clear to me. Latinas Rising enabled me to ascend to new levels, to move through discomfort, release fears, and embrace my dream, to expand and acknowledge my capacity to serve globally, to amplify the voices of women from diverse backgrounds, and to serve as a conduit for others' elevation. The transition. I'm eternally grateful for this book and the transition out of the cave. While metaphorically speaking, it has truly brought immense light, so much love, and greater levels of expansion into my life. Latinas Rising is the book that taught me how to navigate the unknown, to fully believe in my vision, and to trust wholeheartedly that things will unfold not as planned, but as they are destined. I am one with God. I am one with the universe. I create what I desire, but it starts with belief. I must believe in myself, believe in my vision, and believe in my ability to create everything God has placed in my heart. Every step forward brings me closer to my vision. Every step forward opens a new path. Every path is an opportunity for me to grow and expand. This summer, Archangel Michael delivered a specific message to me. The first word that came through was magic. He asked me, "Where is the everyday magic in your life?" He wanted to remind me that I am always protected and cared for. Knowing this, he questioned how I could incorporate more magic and play into my life. He sensed that I sometimes shield myself from fully enjoying life, so he challenged me to invite magic in and trust in the joy of his constant supportive presence. And so I loosened my grip and began to watch the magic unfold. I don't know what my next chapter in life will look like. I don't know where my next client or work will come from, but I do know that the moment I began to loosen my grip, the moment I started to relax, the moment I began to have fun with caring without caring what people would say, that was the moment I truly began to experience freedom. I was told, if you want to predict your day to day, go back to corporate. But if you're seeking an expansive life, entrepreneurship is where you should be. There's one thing I can certainly say. I have never felt more freedom, love, joy, and excitement for life than I do now. God is my safety net. I will never truly fail, for each failure reveals to me what's on the other side, and I use every failure to propel me forward in life. Every failure serves as a redirection from my guides, leading me to places I would otherwise not discover. I am here to make a significant impact in the lives of those I serve. I am here to teach my children to dream big. I am here to live my most abundant life, and I'm here to share it all with you. For now, I invite you to follow me on social media platforms and watch this beautiful journey unfold. Let's connect. Tell me if you're ready to live out your dreams.